I'm the Reverend Deanna Hollis, the Gun Violence Prevention Ministry Coordinator with the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship. I'm here to invite you to become a disarming congregation. Every day in the United States, over 100 people die from gun violence, and another 200 are shot and wounded. As followers of Jesus, we are called to interrupt this violence and embody the way of peace. The United States has a gun problem because so many of us have been deceived by gun industry marketing about what a gun will do for us and our family. We imagine a gun as the guardian of our home and loved ones, rather than the standing invitation to harm, loss, and grief it much more often proves to be. We often put our faith in guns rather than in God and community. Our vision is to create a network of congregations across the country that have an ongoing ministry of disarming unwanted guns. Our model is the nonprofit organization Raw Tools, who for almost 10 years has been working to disarm guns and forge the scrap pieces into garden tools. As guns rarely wear out and are not consumed, the only option a gun owner and their family have to get rid of a gun is to sell it. However, by having a regular ministry of disarming, your congregation provides families an alternative to the gun market and the assurance that their guns will not be used for harm. This is the role of the church in ending gun violence, because we understand grief and ritual and can hold space for healing, as there's often strong emotions associated with guns. In the PCUSA Book of Order, one of the great ends of the church, the reason the church exists, is to exhibit the kingdom of heaven to the world. By disarming guns, we're making the kingdom of heaven manifest here on earth and saving lives. The weapons Americans buy to protect their loved ones are the weapons that end up being unintentionally discharged into a loved one's leg or chest. The weapons Americans buy to protect their young children become the guns later used for self-harm by their troubled teenagers, or they're stolen from their car and used in robberies and murders, or they're grabbed in rage and pointed at an intimate partner. The record shows case after case of guns escalating ordinary disputes into homicides or serious injury. We need gun regulation, and there's little sign of it happening anytime soon. Yet the church doesn't have to wait on lawmakers to take action. Progress can be made against gun violence, as progress was once made against other social evils, by persuading Americans to disarm their guns one by one by one. You may be wondering, what exactly do I mean by a disarming event? Well, a disarming event is where you use a chop saw while the owner is present to make 3 cuts according to ATF guidelines on the receiver of the unloaded gun, so it's no longer a working gun. Don't worry if you haven't used a chop saw before, we can train you. I'd never used a chop saw before, and I can now disarm a gun. Disarmings are different from gun buybacks in that there is no transfer of ownership. You're simply performing a service for a gun owner. And once the gun is disarmed, the scrap parts can then be sent to the organization Raw Tools, where they transform them into garden tools that you can then use to bring life and food to those who are hungry. A gun disarming doesn't have to be a big event. I suggest you start small with guns that are in your network. The size of the event will be determined by how many chop saws and people to operate them you have. When you start small, you can be in conversation with the gun owner to schedule a time and make sure they understand that the gun needs to be unloaded and stored in the trunk or back end of their vehicle. The Presbyterian Peace Fellowship is ready to support you in becoming a disarming congregation through action circles. Each action circle will be composed of folks from congregations around the country that are also committed to hosting a disarming event. Action circles will meet for 3 weeks for training, planning, and community support. And then after you've held your event, we will come back together for debriefing and spiritual reflection. So who are your allies in your congregation that can join you and sign up now for our next action circle.